welcome to Filmtalk, a Film Lab Nigeria production. My name is Efefiong Akpan. I'll quote Mr. Osigwe himself. He said, "I probably watched more black films than anyone else alive." Should we call that the overload, an overload? Let's wait for him to explain. He's the founder of British Urban Festival, Film Festival, BOF Studios in United Kingdom. He's going to answer that question. He is Emmanuel Anyiam Osigwe, Nigerian entrepreneur, filmmaker.
Okay, I'll wait till then. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm me.
That's the UK.
Promise I'll let you know.
Okay, Emmanuel is devoted access for pro-black, big city film, independent makers. His track record started from black colorism theme debut called No Shame. The movie got wide acclamation in Cannes, played in the UK cinemas, and won awards. So you're welcome, Mr. Anyiam Osigwe.
Thanks for having me, Efefiong. Good to see you.
Okay. What makes you a black man? I mean, being a fair man from Igbo land, and your people usually call you on your channel. What makes you? What defines you as a black man?
I hope we get to speak some more Igbo during this interview, because I think Igbo is a wonderful language to hear at the best of times. So when you describe me like Indi Beke is what I'm referred to as well.
Okay.
Or Ndocha. Did you say Ndocha just now?
Onyocha.
That's it. So there's different variations on that, but I've been called various things. But what it means to be a black man, I guess, in the UK is, it's interesting because we're recording this interview at the end of January, just days after the events that have occurred in the United States with the death of another black man by police. And obviously people are putting two and two together, and it's bringing back all the emotions and tensions that surrounded the death of George Floyd. So once again, our existence is being politicized, pun intended, by everybody with regards to our value, our worth, what we represent, what's our purpose on this earth. My purpose, I guess, has been very clear from the beginning, and that was to be a creative, to tell stories, to leave memories. I'm in a position to do that now that I'm a father of two young girls. I have a wife who's in the film and TV industry as well, and I come from a family of creatives as well. So we're never lacking for telling stories, for defining ourselves, both personally and professionally. So I guess I'm in a very privileged position, which is unusual for black people to say that they are in a privileged position, because most black people start off with no privileges and no advantages. So my glass is always half full when it comes to seizing opportunities and taking advantage of them, especially in black film.
Oh, that's fine. And that's why you went on to do No Shade. I would insert No Shade later on, but basically, I would think that No Shade was trying to, put forward the information or make a statement that, I mean, there is really no shade in humanity. I don't know if that is what you meant. But then, what is the thematic driver in No Shade? Let me ask.
That's a good question. So how No Shade became a film is a story in itself, because my wife, as I mentioned, is a qualified dermatologist and an allergy practitioner. So she's trained to serve patients in regards to issues surrounding eczema, psoriasis, and acne. My wife herself suffered from a disease called Candida when she was young. And as a black girl, there wasn't those products in the shops that were able to cater to her specific health needs. So she created her own formula at home, as you do in your bedroom or your kitchen or wherever. And that became a passion, and then it became a business that she created in 2011 called Pre-May Skincare. And then she set up her own clinic in Harley Street, which is world famous for doctors and dentists and anyone in that space. And then she was honored by Her Majesty in 2016 for services to dermatology. And it was really at that period when the beauty industry was in a kind of a big paradox situation, especially in the music industry, where you had artists like Beyonce. And then latterly, it inspired that her father, Matthew Knowles, revealed in his autobiography that when he first met Beyonce's mother, that he thought she was a white woman. But it turns out it's because of her complexion that guided the principles with regards to how he would bring up his daughters in the music industry. So that issue of colorism, shadism, as it's called in the United States, played a big part in how Destiny's Child, the group, was marketed and packaged and sold to the world. And that book coincided with No Shade becoming a film. So why Claire wanted to turn No Shade into a film was born out of her experiences with her skincare business, because she had clients who wanted her to develop skin bleaching creams. So on an ethical basis, she chose not to develop those skin bleaching creams, which were big business globally, especially in Nigeria, where it's a huge issue. And obviously, being from Nigeria, there were so many conundrums to contend with: cultural, social, economical. And she decided that she just wasn't going to do it. So that experience was the kind of driving force behind turning it into a screenplay. So the fact that she was married to me and kind of my background in film curation, programming, exhibition, gave her that safe space and environment to turn that story into a film, which we then made together as husband and wife through our production company, and then was able to then show that film at our own film festival in 2018. So in terms of the thematic issue, it was really born out of Claire's experiences in that space as a qualified dermatologist, that she was able to tell that story. It's not something that most filmmakers would want to venture into the industry and say, this is the first story I want to tell the world. A film about colorism that affects so many communities, not just Black, but look at places like India, where you've got the caste system. So these are huge issues which are still unresolved to a large that needed to be told and had to be told by
I don't know what's going on.
Okay, carry on.
It looks like you're breaking off. I can't even hear you again in the past few seconds.
Oh, right. No, I finished speaking about 30 seconds ago, so hopefully you got everything
Okay,
there.
all right. So yeah, I can see I am overwhelmed, because I hardly see people taking on, immediate issues and circumstances to tell stories. So this makes it very interesting. And I begin to see the redemptive side of all that you're telling me, how relevant it became necessary for you to do the movie. So moving on, do you think this would serve as a redemptive issue around Black colorism in the UK or anywhere else?
Well, I think first and foremost, it was important to own the issue and not leave it to other people who are probably not as qualified to make a statement about it. So in many ways, No Shade could have been a documentary. which would have allowed us factually to speak to people who had experienced colorism, speaking to people in the industry, in the media, in the health profession, etc. It could have gone in that direction. But I think through drama and through romance, especially in the Black community, colorism is a huge issue when it comes to dating and to finding someone who you hope to spend the rest of your life with. And for colorism to be a huge factor in determining who you should be romantically involved with is obviously problematic, because the issue is seeing someone's skin color and making a romantic decision based on that. So make of that what you will. So No Shade obviously deals with not just colorism, but how romance, especially in London and the UK, and obviously with certain generations, how they are living their life and how their life has been dictated to by peer pressure, by the media, and by that whole control in terms of the messages that are being communicated in the media and in the press and by your peers on a daily basis. And we're not even talking about social media yet and kind of the pressure that comes with that. So we tackled a lot of issues head on, but it was important that we had someone qualified to kind of put that story on paper and then on film, and then for audiences to see that and see whether it resonated with them. And fortunately, the film did resonate with a lot of people, positively and negatively, because in many ways, what we were doing is we were airing our dirty laundry out in public. And obviously, not a lot of people do that literally or kind of metaphorically. So we did both. So everything is out there. And I guess if we're going to stay with that analogy, it's whether people want to clean up their laundry or they want to leave everything as it is.
Okay. Basically, you have invariably, probably become a native of the UK, filmmaking scene, so to say. I use the word native. Um, what will be the fate of the main character situated in urban Black identity with, hybridized UK cultural space? I mean, the UK cultural space has so many minorities, so many people sink into colors of, racial marriages and cross-racial marriages and so on and so forth. How will that help your main character? If your main character is in that ambience of, I am neither white or Asian or African, how does that really help that kind of main character?
That's a really good question. I'm just going into another area. Just bear with me, Effifion.
Okay.
Just bear with me. I'm just trying to. Yeah, just give me a second. I'll be 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind repeating that question, that would
Okay.
be great.
I'm looking at. I want to assume that probably your main character is colored. Let me put it that way. Let me not use the word. Let me not use the word. Let me not use the word half caste like we used to use in Nigeria. Let me use the
Sure,
word
sure,
colored.
sure.
If you had your main character to be that kind of person, how would your main character survive the UK environment?
So that's a really good question, because I guess because the story is told from the perspective of a dark-skinned Black woman, which is what my wife is, she would probably be the best person to answer that question. It will be hard for me to speak on behalf of dark-skinned black women because I don't share ultimately their experiences and what they go through on a day-by-day basis. Obviously, you hear stories about the oppression that they face on a daily basis, whether it's people like Viola Davis, um, to read obviously famous people, obviously to everyday people. So in terms of the issues that are faced, I mean, they are constant. You know, there is obviously because of how the Western world operates, there is this inherent competition complex with regards to beauty and how do you define beauty? Is it through the gaze of a white woman? Is it through the gaze of a black woman? And that's just color. There's things about body image with regards to size zero, fatness, etc. So there's lots of complex issues at play when it comes to beauty. And there is no right answer. You know, it's like they say in the adage, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it's for people to take ownership. And I guess if we're going into a spiritual kind of space with this answer, it's really about loving yourself rather than seeing what the industry or certain belief systems perceive to be as beautiful. And it's whether you conform to that belief or whether you go in another direction and define your own or create your own belief system. And is creating systems of validation is a huge part of who I am and what I have done with Buff, whether it's through the film festival or with Buff Studios. It's always been about ownership of oneself, of our values, belief systems, how we present ourselves. And it's for other people to either accept that belief system or reject it. We're not here to pacify or please people. We're here to tell our own truth from our own experiences. Everyone comes into this world from a place of advantage or disadvantage. And then what we do with that is really up to us. It's not really up to the universe to tell us how to live our own life. So, you know, the question you've asked there is very complex. There's no linear answers, and it's good that we're having this discussion where, for the people listening, what they are hearing are not the kind of things you would hear on a daily basis, whether it's on a news broadcast or a current affairs show. So I hope that what listeners are hearing will resonate either completely or partly, and it's something that they can relate to and take forward in their own lives.
I guess uh, that seemed to answer my question. Uh, how would I, for example, if I'm a black man and I come to the UK, I probably get into a relationship with a white man. How would I authenticate myself, authenticate myself as a black person, as a human person? I guess that's where you're driving at.
Well, again, first and foremost, you mentioned the key word there, humanity. So wherever you go, whatever it is that you're pursuing or looking for, whether it's work, love, money, um, one's humanity must be respected at all times. So the moment someone's kind of way of life or outlook on life is compromised or taken advantage of, then that's when the problems start. So my thing is, you know, you can marry whoever you want to. It's not really, it shouldn't really come down to these isms, colorism, racism, socialism, communism. It shouldn't come down to these concepts to determine ultimately what your true pursuit of happiness is in life. So I think you just need to take full ownership of what you feel inside. And if that seems to resonate with someone else, then you're on your way. You start spiritualizing other people. So I think it's really as profound as that. At the moment you start to take notice of your peers and what society is deeming to be the way forward, then that's where a lot of the problems start. And obviously, with how the world is designed in many areas, there are systems in place to keep people kind of blinkered from seeing their true potential. So I think for some of us, we're kind of on this earth to find our true potential. And if anything or anyone gets in the way of that, we are equipped personally to overcome those obstacles. But it's a lifelong work. It's not something that can be achieved after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's a constant lifetime work. Like I said, I've got children that are watching me in terms of what I'm going through, and then what stories I'll be able to leave, and legacies and memories, lessons and belief systems for them to take forward for their children. So it's very important, that kind of succession, in terms of who are you leaving your legacy to, and why are you leaving that legacy to certain people. So there's a lot of things, like I said, at play in my life, both personally and professionally, that speak to the type of person that I am.
Yeah. So yeah, moving forward, what's the degree of variation from Native Africanness if you could compare your filmmaking experience as a Black person to Nollywood, for example? I know there is a Nollywood UK. In fact, people in London also, some people in London, the UK also call them Nollywood London or Nollywood UK. How do you reconcile all these drivers that you've put forward to authenticate Black identity in urban UK with what Nollywood stands for in terms of duality of concepts or culture? Sometimes you listen to Nollywood actors, they're speaking like they are from the UK, or they are from the America or New York. So there's a whole bag of a mixed bag of confusion. Let me put it that way. So how do you well, how would you come? Hello.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Excellent. So I guess I'm kind of uniquely qualified to answer that question. So in terms of before BUFF, before the British Urban Film Festival, I started out my film career working for Black film companies. So in 2002, I worked for a company called Black Filmmaker Magazine, which was a magazine set up by a Black filmmaker called Menelik Shabazz, who's originally from Barbados, but is well known in the UK for a film he made about Black love called Burning an Illusion, which was in film. And then in 2004, I worked for another film organization called Screen Nation, the Screen Nation Awards. And I worked for another Black film producer called Charles Thompson, who's originally from Ghana, but based in the UK. So during that time, I was able to understand the appetite for Nollywood in the UK through working for these two companies. But also, we have institutions in the UK like the BFI, the British Film Institute, which in the old days used to be called the National Film Theatre on the South Bank. And they would put on lots of screenings from Nigeria. And that would be the first opportunity for people from the diaspora, either in London or the UK, to watch Nollywood on the big screen. So it was through there that the appetite grew. But as I got older, I was told, obviously, by my parents about my family background in Nigeria, the Anyiam Osigwe family. So my kind of distant cousins were very prominent practitioners in children's television in the 1970s. So one of my distant cousins, Charles Anyiam Osigwe, created Funtime, which, from what I hear, is one of the most popular children's television series in Nigeria. And he was the creator of that. So to think that I'm related to someone like him means that I come from good stock. And then later, as it transpired, his sister, Peace, founded the African Movie Academy Awards. And so that's still going after 19 years. And obviously, we started this interview by talking about the events of the United States and the death of a black man. And with Peace, unfortunately, she's no longer with us, having passed away on the 10th of January this year, so suddenly. So that's the stock that I come from, and that is the reputation that I am upholding with regards to Nollywood abroad, but also to bring that diaspora influence back home to Nigeria. So in many ways, I've come full circle in that journey. And with Bath, I've been able to celebrate the best of the diasporan culture on film through the film festival. Last year, we honored Obi Emmanuel for 20 years outstanding contribution. And we nominated several Nigerian actors and actresses such as Kelechi Udegbi for his great performance in Collision Course, which I was saying to my wife this morning is one of the all-time classic Nollywood films. I would put it as one of the best 10 Nigerian films I've ever seen. And that's Collision Course that only came out 2 years ago. And when you think of films down the years, such as Living in Bondage, A Sofa in London, there's so many films, Lionheart as well. So to put Collision Course but off screen as well through her film academies, Terror Culture. So we're all kind of playing our part to celebrate the Nollywood culture, both at home and abroad. Go ahead. Go ahead, Effifian.
Okay, sorry. The internet was giving me issues here, so I didn't know you had finished. Basically, what I've learned now is that your pursuance of black urban identity in the UK or anywhere else has been solely about concretizing and actually synthesizing what you've learned, should I put it as a cultural ambassador? You're there to get everything and mold it into an authentic black identity. Wherever you go, you represent home and abroad. I guess that's what I've learned from you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what personal development milestones inspired all this? You've said it all that when you were growing up, you had a lot of exposure in the UK and, coming from a filmmaking family or a media and entertainment family, you were, prone to take on the mantle and continue. Would you reinvent the stasis should it appear to have failed vis-a-vis the native Africanity? Let me put it this way. Would you reinvent the urban black identity if tomorrow you wake up and what you're pursuing, what you've achieved so far, as in solidifying urban black identity becomes washed out? Right now there is confusion amongst even filmmakers in Nollywood as to what should they pursue, what should they uphold, what should they keep. Would you tomorrow be able to say, okay, I'm going to reinvent what I believe should be a standing legacy for the black identity?
That's a very good question, Effifion. I guess having been in the industry now for over 20 years, I've learnt to pick battles and make sure you win them. You can't fight every battle. And that question that you've asked is, and it's interesting that you mentioned that in Nollywood, this is a dilemma for a lot of the filmmakers in terms of why should they care? Why should it matter to uphold the Black urban identity? Why can't they tell other stories that have got nothing to do with a Black urban identity? And I was having this conversation with a Sierra Leonean filmmaker who's based in the UK a couple of weeks ago, actually, where he wanted to develop a project to do basically with Irish characters. And my thing is, yeah, why not? It doesn't mean that because the story is Black that it has to be a Black person telling it. But in my time in the industry, I've seen too many stories about Black people that have been found wanting in
Hold
terms
on,
of
please.
its.
Hold on, please. Can you take it from where you met the guy, because my internet connection is rather bad. I don't know if
All
you
right.
went only. I don't know if you went. If we do audio, whether it be better. So let's do only audio. I don't know whether that is a problem.
Yeah, let's
Can
do
you
that.
keep? Let's do audio because I don't. I think that's a problem.
Sure. Can you hear me
Mm.
now?
Very clearly, very smoothly. So, bottom line is, I was asking how you could still reinvent, the essential Black urban identity if tomorrow you wake up, probably in the 22nd century, I don't know, and you find out that everything about the Black identity has been whitewashed, especially with Nollywood embracing foreign culture, American culture, and European culture by the day.
So that's a really interesting question. So having been in the industry for over 20 years, I've learned to pick my battles because I can't fight every battle and hopefully win those battles. And the issue of Black urban identity is something um, that shouldn't be the sole responsibility of Nollywood filmmakers or Black filmmakers in general to solve. And what I mean by that is they shouldn't just have to tell Black niche stories. They can tell other stories as well if they want to. And I was having this conversation with a Sierra Leonean filmmaker who's based in the UK a couple of weeks ago. And he's telling a story from Ireland in terms of its origins. And it's like we were looking at each other thinking, why is that a problem necessarily? And I guess with regards to film and TV and media, it's all about business. It's all about money in terms of what makes the world goes round. What is deemed a commercial project? And these are constant issues that filmmakers are having to face, which means that they are compromising their creativity because they now suddenly have to think like business people. So in many ways, I guess the answer for filmmakers, and in answer to your question in terms of how would I redefine or would I have to redefine Black urban identity, it goes back to what I said earlier about creating your own belief system. Um, Everyone has got their own truth that they are on the pursuit of and are looking for. It's not something that becomes apparent until you have what is known as your calling. So when that calling suddenly arrives in you spiritually, you then have to channel that and use what you have at your disposal at that particular time. And then I guess as long as you stay on the right path and you meet like-minded people who are able to help accentuate and add and enhance your belief system, then what you believe in and how you communicate that will only continue to grow and spiritualize more people. And what Buff has done through the film festival and the awards and the studios is we have spiritualized people to the extent where they feel comfortable in telling uncomfortable stories. because to go to other spaces that have made Black people feel uncomfortable traditionally, those people are probably not aware as to the structural issues that are at hand in terms of gatekeeping, which is part of racism, and power ultimately. So if as a Black filmmaker you don't have the power to tell your truth, then fundamentally you are compromised in your creativity and your earning potential. So again, there's a lot of issues at hand with regards to Black urban identity and who is in control of that. But it's a great question that you ask, and it's not about, I guess, answering these questions from a binary approach, because it's always complex. You know, I'm always coming at it from an angle, and I'm speaking from experience and from my expertise of the industry. So although I'm offering general answers laced within and examples of what I have experienced as a person in the industry. And hopefully people will take that for what it is and use it and come to their own conclusions as to what they see as, I don't want to say the word the problem with Black urban identity, but certainly one of the factors that is a constant play. So I guess the more I think about it, as long as people are aware of what the issues are, then there's a path from which you can then take, as opposed to you keep walking down a path blindly and then waste all that time, money, and resources going down a different path, thinking that you've reached the promised land. But like I said, this is a lifetime process, and I'm in it for the long haul. You're always learning in this business and in life, and that's something I hope people take away from this discussion that we're having as well.
Okay, you've hammered on two issues: staying a prophet or staying a mercantilist. Those are the two issues. Either you stay a prophet or you stay a mercantilist, and that's one issue. These two issues have run parallel in Nollywood, for example, in Nigeria. When people are mercantilists, they want to put food on the table. That's this mindset. I want to put food on the table. I want to build a house. I want to do this. I want to do that. And that goes down to accountability in the structure of the industry in Nigeria. But staying a prophet, like you said, is going down the narrow path that will eventually lead you to paradise. Can you envisage a situation where we as an industry, as a Black industry, as Nollywood, would be able to stay accountable, and buy into what we believe in, the prophecy, let me put it so, the Black prophecy, or let me put it so, the Black essence. Stay accountable, be true to the prophecy, and then probably in the long run, see light at the end of the tunnel. Is that possible?
Is that possible? Well, if you don't mind everything, what do you think personally? If I can
think
flip
that
it on you.
staying true, like you, will eventually bring up what is happening now. What do I mean? I mean, right now, networks are coming to Africa to harvest stories. The very Africa that harvested stories back in the decades behind us. Probably they have so harvested so many stories that they probably have lost authenticity. So now they're coming back to us who know the real thing to give them the authentic thing. I always tell people that when in the colonial times or in this transatlantic slave era, the ancestors of those guys who harvested us physically took our cultures abroad, told their future generations, these are people who live on top of trees. But now those generations have upheld that regard, that evaluation of who we are for so long. Now they are curious to know the truth. That's why Afrobeats is selling. What do you think?
Yeah, you touch on something that is obviously very prevalent now in Africa with regards to the likes of Disney, Netflix, Amazon,
Mm,
imposing their American soft power on the continent.
mm,
And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I guess time will tell because we're still in kind of the early infancy as to what is the real agenda. Why are they coming to the continent? Why now? Obviously, we've had Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. Um, and I remember saying this to someone at the time of the first Black Panther in 2018 as to why a whole continent, Africa, why couldn't a film like Black Panther be made in the continent? And to this day, I've still not had the answer to that question. Given what you said with regards to our rich heritage of storytelling, and there's a lot of stories that have yet to be told about the history and heritage of Africa. But with Black Panther, which obviously now that it's had its sequel, has grossed combined close to $2 billion. Why can't Africa create a film or a franchise with that kind of potential? Um, so th- I put it this way. I, I I was born in the UK, and we kind of made a joke of it at the start of the interview that I wasn't born in the motherland, so I'm kind of detached from some of the issues, even though through what I do in the UK, I feel close to what's happening in Africa. But you're not really close until you're there. And obviously, I was very fortunate to meet you last August at the Nigeria International Film Summit, where I
mhm.
was part of a delegation led by the British Film Production. But when you look at what the likes of Amazon and Netflix are doing, it doesn't feel like co-production. It still feels like a relationship where they are very much kind of the majority partner. But Nigeria is the largest black nation on earth. It has 200 million people living there.
Mhm.
Nollywood is the second largest film industry in the world. So the potential in terms of the workforce, the creativity, is not really being reflected in the nature of the relationships that these streamers are having with production companies on the ground. That's the sense that I'm getting.
Mhm.
Anecdotally, I don't have any empirical data to back up what I'm saying. It's just a feeling that I get. So whether that balance is going to be adjusted over the coming years, time will tell. Um, but it's down to people like you and people on the ground in Nigeria to speak up as to whether these companies coming into Nigeria and Africa in general are a good thing. And what does a good thing look like? Why do we need validation from these companies? We've got things like AMA that celebrate the best of African film. And that's been going for 19 years without Netflix and Amazon. So there's already an example of a system, a belief system. I'll go back to that term that I've used in a previous answer, where we've created something for ourselves. It's by us, and it's something that should be cherished and should be commoditized and harnessed going forward. So there is an example there as to what can be achieved within ourselves without having to. And again, I don't know whether there were people in Nigeria that reached out to the likes of a Netflix to say, come to Nigeria, we're open for business? Or was it Netflix in the States, seeing what's happening in Nigeria, thinking, here's an opportunity we can take advantage of. I mean, I'll tell you something that I read the other day with regards to Girls Trip, a movie that grossed over $100 million when the first film came out in the States. When did it come out? Probably 5-6 years ago now. Girls Trip, produced by Will Packer, who I met last year when he came to London to promote Beast, which was shot in South Africa, but it's an American producer. Idris Elba, obviously British based, but originally from Sierra Leone. Not really popular South African cast in the film, but again, using the best of Africa, but it's American money. And someone wrote an article about this kind of soft power at play again. Girls Trip I mentioned because it's Will Packer, but also it was announced last week that they're going to do the sequel, part 2, in Ghana. And that Idris Elba might be potentially looking to set up a film studio in Ghana. And my first reaction was, why isn't Idris investing in Nigeria? And the probable reason is because there's not much money to be made, or looking at it crudely, there's not much people to take advantage of. And maybe that's because people are wising up to the potential that there is in Nigeria and probably trying to take advantage in another territory like a Ghana. Again, I don't know that for sure. I'm only going on anecdotal evidence and just a sense that I get in the way the industry is moving. So there's a lot that we've unpacked there, but I think it's a daily battle. And over the coming years, we're going to see that unravel in terms of whether these companies are here to stay, or whether they're going to pack up their toys and go to another battleground, whether it's in Asia, the Middle East, Australia. Obviously, Europe is oversubscribed. The US is oversubscribed, saturated. So they're looking at new battlegrounds, looking to win new audiences and new business. But the challenge is there for Nigeria and Africa in general. Can we generate our own business? And if so, what does that look like?
Okay, that's very interesting. Now you keep using the word battleground, a lifelong battle. And so, as a last word, how would you advise filmmakers in Nigeria to wear their armor and be prepared to, face up to this challenge of, taking what is their own and keeping it for others to pay for what they need to get from them?
What I would say to filmmakers is to back yourself 110%. This tendency to be looking for validation is not far-fetched, but I think given that we're in the social media age, the age of information, which is so widely and freely available, it doesn't really cost much for filmmakers to be fully educated in the film business and the business of film. So it's very easy now to make a film. You can make a film on your mobile phone, and audiences would not be able to tell the difference between a film shot on an iPhone or on an Arri Alexa. So making a film is not the issue. It's the business of film and the film business that filmmakers need to be fully equipped in. Like I said, all the information is out there freely on the internet. There are ecosystems in terms of film festivals, film conferences, film summits, the filmmakers that should go to, listen to the movers and shakers that are freely giving their time to speak to audiences about what they are going through in the industry and what their take is on the industry. Ask lots of questions. Ask all sorts of questions. No question is stupid. No question is silly. Get an answer. Write everything down. And don't rush is another thing I would say. A lot of people, because of Netflix and what the industry reports to say Netflix is a multi-billion-pound company. It's not about that. It's about why are they there and why are
Mm-hmm.
you in the industry? And for Nigerian filmmakers, ask yourself why you want to be in the industry. And once you genuinely know why you want to be here, everything actually becomes easy after that. And in order for it to become easy, do your research first. Do as much research as you can because there's no rush when it comes to making a film. Once you fully understand what's going on regarding the economics of film, the business of film, the film business, the politics, the cultural issues, the socio-economic issues, um, then everything becomes more clearer. And then your purpose is more clearly defined. Because even now, there are people making films, and you ask yourself, why was this film made? A lot of films are being made because they're just following a formula which has been tried and tested. But
Mm-hmm.
there are audiences and filmmakers that are looking constantly for something different. And the world is so big, it's an 8 billion population out there. There are stories that are yet to be told, and that should be the constant challenge for a filmmaker. Why should people care about the next story that I'm going to tell or the first story that I'm going to tell? I'm bringing it back to No Shade. The reason why that was the first story that we wanted to tell as Buff Studios was because it came from a place of truth. It came from a place of expertise. It came from a place of experience through Claire as a dermatologist and through me as an exhibitor of black film. So when you combine those two truths that can't be taken away, that can't be manipulated by other forces, then you have something very powerful. And in terms of realizing the worth of that, again, it's lifelong. You know, it's taken us 5 years to make our second film, which is a documentary about a British Nigerian family and the mother who is blind and her son who is world famous. And the premise behind the film was how can someone who is blind live a day-to-day life knowing that their son who's a boxer, they can't actually see their child box? You know,
Oh
that
my
is a
God.
universal story. But the fact that it's British Nigerian speaks to me. And it's a story that I wanted to tell. And I knew I could tell it well because I had common that commonality with the family and we share so much in common. So in the end, it was a very easy film to tell. But the fact that a story like that has not been told before would scare most people off. But we were able to back ourselves financially. Fortunately, we knew people in the industry such as BT, Joe Joyce, the boxer, boxes for in terms of the platform. So there are a lot of elements in place that made the film very easy to make, and now we're in a position
Yeah.
to, put the film out there to the world. The film is called Absolutely Marvelous. Do look out for it. Hopefully, we'll be bringing it to Nigeria. Um, but I'm very fortunate that I'm in a position to use what I have in terms of my background and my advantages, and turn it into something that has deep and meaningful purpose. And for filmmakers, I think for those that haven't made the film, do your research. For those that are on their second, third film, or are looking to pursue another career in the film and TV business, again, just do your research and be fully alert as to what's happening around you and what's happening in the industry, and things will become a lot clearer.
That's so informing. So it's all about feeling it, owning it, and doing it. I guess that
Yes,
should be the conclusion. Thank you so much, Emmanuel Osigwe. It's been good having you. I will always want to come back to you and talk to you about certain issues if there's need. Thank you so much for obliging Film Lab Nigeria. Thank you. Please, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me today. It's been great to talk with you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.